Hi, in this lesson we're going to talk about how to find derivatives of inverse sine, inverse cosine, and inverse tangent, which is also known as arcsine, arccosine, arctangent. Let's start with arcsine. So what do we know about that? If you call, this is the method we're going to do. If you call arcsine x, y, then you can rewrite x equals sine y. And from here we can go ahead and differentiate this. You're going to have to use implicit differentiation because you're trying to differentiate with respect to x. So differentiate with respect to x. So implicit differentiation, this side gives you 1. This side is going to give you cosine y dy over dx. And that means dy over dx is going to give you 1 over cosine y. I'm going to leave it for a moment. I'm going to get something else figured out here. So let's, how can we do that? If we know sine y equals x, what we're going to do is draw a triangle. This angle is y. So sine y equals x over 1. We can write that as a fraction. So sine is opposite over adjacent, which means this side can be marked as x, and this is 1. So then by using the Pythagorean theorem, this side here is going to be square root of 1 minus x squared. Right? And if you want to figure out cosine y, that's going to be adjacent over the hypotenuse, which is going to be square root of 1 minus x squared over 1, or simply square root of 1 minus x squared. And we're going back to our derivative. Right here it says dy over dx is going to be 1 over cosine y, so it's going to be 1 over square root of 1 minus x squared. So the derivative of, let me summarize this, the derivative of arcsine sine x is going to be 1 over square root of 1 minus x squared. Okay. Let's take a look at the derivative of inverse cosine. So derivative of inverse cosine, we use exactly the same approach. We're going to say that our cosine x is y. So from here we know that x equals cosine y. Implicit differentiation is going to give us, so the derivative of x is 1, derivative of cosine is negative sine y times dy over dx. Again, we're going to leave it for a moment. We're going to need to do some right triangle things. So if we know that this says that cosine y equals x, I'm going to write as x over 1. If this angle is y, then it's adjacent over the hypotenuse, so x over 1. And with the Pythagorean theorem, we can figure out that this side is going to be 1 square root of 1 minus x squared. Correct? So then to find sine y, we are going to write opposite over hypotenuse, which is going to be square root of 1 minus x squared divided by 1, or simply square root of 1 minus x squared. So going back to our problem here, I did not finish. Dy over dx equals negative 1 over sine y, and we substitute what we got here. So we can say that dy over dx equals negative 1 over square root of 1 minus x squared. Okay, and we can finally finish that by saying that the derivative of arc cosine x is going to be negative 1 over square root of 1 minus x squared. So you can actually notice that the only difference between the derivative of arcsine and arccosine is the negative sign. Okay. Okay, and finally arctangent. So with arctangent, we're pretty much going to use the same exact process that we used, nothing different. So for arctangent, we're going to write that arctangent x equals y, which means x equals tangent y, right? Implicit differentiation, it's going to give us 1 equals derivative of tangent is secant squared y times dy over dx. And we can write that dy over dx is going to be 1 over secant squared y. Okay, so going back to our, it's going to help us here. We're going to rewrite that we know 1 over secant is cosine, so this is going to be cosine squared y. Let's do a right triangle. So we know that tangent y is x, so we're going to write it as x over y. This is angle y. And this angle, tangent is opposite over hypotenuse, so that means this side is x, this side is 1, x over 1. And with the Pythagorean theorem, we can figure out that this side here is going to be square root of 1 plus x squared. Right? So then we're trying to do cosine, so cosine y is going to be opposite, adjacent over the hypotenuse, so it's going to be 1 over square root of 1 plus x squared, adjacent over hypotenuse. And then we substitute that into our formula, right? So we're going to go back here, dy over dx equals this quantity squared, which is going to give you 1 over 1 plus x squared. And we summarize that by saying that dy over dx, d over dx of arctangent x is going to give us what? We have this formula here, so it's going to be 1 over 1 plus x squared. And this completes this lesson.